Hey guys, Coach Dale Sanford here. Welcome to Millington, Tennessee, Edmond Orgill Park and Casper Lake, home of the Memphis in May Triathlon series. Memphis in May is one of the oldest running triathlons in the country. It's been around for over 30 years. So what I want to do is I want to take you through different parts of the Olympic distance race, give you some tips, things to watch out for, and hopefully better prepare you for the race. So the transition area is going to take up about half the parking lot. Now, I've drawn a map of the transition area so you can see where the swim in and run out is on the side closest to the boat ramp, and then the bike in and out is on the opposite side closest to the entrance and exit of the parking lot itself. One thing you need to note is that upon exiting the transition area for the run, you have to bend around the outside of the transition fencing and head back toward the road along the fence and then run up the grass hill to the road as you head out. So I wanted to give you a few quick tips about the Olympic race course before we get going on the other legs. One thing you need to know is that the wetsuit situation is going to be 50-50. The lake isn't that deep and it heats up pretty quickly, so just be prepared for that. If you've got a swim skin, bring it. The other thing, the bike course is only about 23 miles long instead of 40K. So just be prepared for a little bit shorter bike there. The other thing is that the run course is likely going to be a little bit long, probably a little bit over 1/10 of a mile long. And this is really just due to having the safest place for the turnaround to be. The turnaround is going to be at the top of a hill, and they didn't want to put it in a blind area in case their cars were coming the other direction. So they moved it a little bit further up the road into a safer area. So just be prepared for a little bit longer run course than 10K. A couple other things to note. There is zero shade except for a couple little spots on the run course. So be prepared to battle the heat. And with that, there is no bottle exchange on the bike course. So make sure that if you're going to be out there for anything over about an hour, to bring at least 2 bottles of fluid. All right, so here we go. Let's move on into the swim course. So the swim start and finish is on the far end of the parking lot at the boat ramp. We're going to line up one at a time. Time trial start, fashion, 3 to 5 seconds apart. Everybody's going to go in the water one at a time. The swim course is labeled as 1,500 meters. It's actually got 3 turns, and it is kind of in a modified kind of funnel shape. You're going to go out, you're going to take a left-hand turn, and then you're going to go into the bigger triangle. There are a lot of great things on the shoreline to sight, so I would suggest checking out the swim the day before and picking those markers before the race so that you can have things to sight off of. There's a chance the sun's going to be coming up as we head out, so make sure you have tinted goggles just in case the sun's high in the sky. You don't want it to blind you as you're trying to sight. Make sure as you're coming back in, you're going to sight the boat ramp. It's the longest stretch is coming from the last turn back to the boat ramp. So just make sure you're sighting well and sight the boat ramp, and also there's likely going to be a big archway for you to sight. But other than that, there's not a whole lot to the swim course, so let's move on to the bike. The bike course is overall very flat and fast, so there's not a whole lot to say about it. Now, it's about 23.5 miles long, maybe a little bit less depending on your GPS. So it's a little bit under that 40K mark. There's not a whole lot of shade on the course, but there's a little bit on the backside. It's a looping course, so expect that if there's wind, you're going to have it in just about every direction. Now, one thing that can slow you down on this course are the number of turns. There's about 17 turns, give or take, on the course. So just keep your head up looking for the markers on where to turn. Start to finish does a great job on marking the course, so that shouldn't be a problem. Just keep your head up. Overall, the roads are really good. There are a few patches that you need to watch out for. So again, just keep your head on a swivel. One thing to note is that when you come out of the transition area, the mount-dismount line is actually going to be down in the parking lot. So coming out of T1, you may want to consider running up the hill out of the parking lot before you mount. If you're a proficient mounter, you can jump on your bike and then just cruise up the hill. It's no big deal. When you're coming back in, you're going to be coming down that hill headed toward the dismount line. So just make sure you can progressively brake so you don't get up on the dismount line, flying in, coming in hot, and grab a fistful of front brake. That never ends well. So as you're leaving the park, you're going to be on the park road for a little bit. Now note there's a few patches in the park that you need to watch out for. There's actually one bridge that you're going to cross that's pretty bumpy, so I wouldn't be an arrow for that. Now as you head out of the park, you're going to turn right on Mudville Road, and once you turn right on Mudville, that's the extent of your vertical. There's going to be two little kicker hills. If you're a strong cyclist, you can power over these. If not, I'd hold back on them a little bit, just spin and get over them so you don't zap your legs for later. Now, the rest of the course, again, is pretty flat, but there are a few little things that you have to watch out for. Coming on Mudville Road, you're going to be coming slight downhill, and you'll come up and you'll see a pond. When you see that pond, that's going to be a cue for you to turn right onto Miller Road. So just watch out for that. Hopefully you don't see the guy bringing his trash can in with his lawnmower. Again, as far as hills go, you'll have those two little kicker hills to begin with, and then a couple little bumps on Sledge Road, and then there's going to be a couple small ones on Pleasant Ridge Road. And these are just really just small little grindy uphills. They're a quarter to a third of a mile long, no big deal. Just stay in arrow and keep consistent in your effort for these. So at one point in the course, you're actually going to be heading directly toward the naval base. And as you come up the road, you're actually going to see the gates to the naval base. Once you're coming up there, you're actually going to turn left away from the naval base onto a small little access road, and it's actually going to bend back on itself. So it's kind of a left and then a left bend back on itself. That's one thing to watch out for. You're not actually going to go up into the naval base. You won't be able to get in there anyways. So when you see the naval base, it's a left turn and then it bends back on itself. So once you get back on College Center Road, which is the right-hand turn after the elementary school, there's actually a pretty bad patch of blacktop that you'll want to watch out for. It's very much kind of in the center of the road, so if you stay to the right, you can avoid it, and you can actually stay in arrow. Shortly after that, there's a really hard left-hand bend. It's not a turn, it's just the road bends 90 degrees to the left. You'll be coming into this with some speed. If you're a very comfortable, proficient bike handler, you can likely take it in arrow. If you're not quite comfortable, I would get out of arrow, put your hands on the bullhorns or the hoods, and then take the turn and then go back directly back into arrow after the turn. You'll probably be taking pretty good speed through that turn, so just something to watch out for. One last thing to watch out for is actually the road turning back into the park. You're going to be coming off of College Center Road, and the road back into the park, in the middle of the turn, there's a pretty sizable patch of loose gravel and kind of a pothole area. So it's going to be very difficult for the race directors to clean all of that out of that section. So just be watching out for that and try to take that turn as safely as possible when you're coming back into the park. The only other thing to note about the bike course is that you're going to spend a ton of time in arrow, so just be ready for that. Let's move on to the run course. Now, as you're leaving transition, you want to make sure that you go out the swim in, and you're going to bend around the side and go back on yourself and run the fencing along the transition area down the parking lot. At the end of the parking lot, you're going to go up the big grass hill, and you'll be out on the park road. Once you get on the park road, watch out for those bad patches in the concrete or the blacktop. There's a bunch of them, so just be careful there. The park road itself is pretty rolling. There's a couple little punchy hills, Just be prepared for those. When you get to the end of the park road, you're going to take a right and then an immediate left. And if you've made it this far in the course preview, I saved this section for last on purpose. If you haven't made it this far, you don't deserve to know this stuff. So once you take that zigzag, the fun begins. You're going to go net uphill. There's going to be a couple of stair-stepping hills net uphill from there. They're short and steep. They're going to hurt a little bit more than they probably would otherwise because it's at the end of a race. But just know they're coming. A couple of short, steep hills. Once you get to the top of that, guys, though, you're okay. All right, you're going to be flat for a little while. It's going to be very flat. This is your reprieve. So try to recover. Vary your cadence a little bit. Generally, if you go a little bit lower cadence, you can bring your heart rate back down, and then you can go back into your cruise mode. Just know those hills are coming. At the top of those two hills, you're taking a right turn, and again, that's where it flattens out. Now, later you're going to bend left onto another road, and that's where you want to start mentally preparing yourself for the final hill before the turnaround. So once you're going on that road, you'll see the shade start to appear, and you're going to be really happy about the shade. But when you see the shade, that's when the hill is going to start. So you're going to go uphill all the way to the turnaround. Now, make sure that you are focusing on pushing backwards, going up the hill. If you're not pushing backwards, you're not going forwards. Another tip is don't look up the hill. Look at the concrete or the blacktop in front of you going up the hill versus looking up the hill, because it causes your body to sit up a whole lot. Other thing is make sure that your arms are powering your leg movement. So as you're pushing back on the left side, your right arm is powering backwards. It's really going to help you go up that hill a lot more efficiently. So at the top of the hill is a turnaround. You're going to loop back around and you're coming right back down that hill. It's a bit of a quad buster, guys. So try to keep your cadence high to prevent a lot of front side contact if you can. It's steep enough where it's going to be tough. But just let the gravity take you downhill. Once you get down the hill, again, guys, you are flat. So use that as your time to recover. Mess with your cadence and see if you can get your heart rate to come back down. You're going to bend back around right, and then you're going to stay flat for a little while until you take that left turn going back toward the park. And that's when you're going to have to do those downward rolling hills. So you're going net downhill, but there's still a few rolling hills there. Once you get down at the bottom of that, you're back at the park. You're taking your zigzag and you're back in the park. Again, watch your footing. The blacktop isn't great. You're going to go back through those little rolling pieces. Again, you're net downhill right now. So you're a couple of rolling spots in the park, and then you're going to take a right-hand bend onto the levee. Don't miss the levee. Once you are on the levee, you are home free. The finish line is at the far end of the levee. So kick it into high gear and finish strong. Hey guys, thanks for watching the course preview. We hope you picked up some good tips, and we hope to see you out there. And as always, trust your training.